what do I do? So here we are at the end of my garden in my little shed, and I build stuff. I mean, I think I would like to think of myself as a maker who hasn't actually made anything. One of the reasons that I've started with this forge thing is because of YouTube. Let's get that straight out there. You watch somebody do it and you think, I want to do that. Flames and hot metal and banging things out, it's great fun. And it is really good fun. It is unbelievably difficult. So the anvil is the heart of any forge, or an anvil-shaped object, as they call it these days. Any big lump of metal, it's the heart of it. So once you've got one of those, then you can build this whole thing around this item. And it was at that point I decided that actually I wasn't just going to leave it outside in the garden where it had been for most of its life. Interesting, that's why it's not screwed up. And I thought, well, I'll just build a shed around it. Metal is, material science is actually a fascinating subject. What happens to metal? So when you get it up into the red hot region, it becomes like a plastic. It doesn't quite float, you haven't melted it yet. And obviously it freezes when it gets down to like 600 or 700 degrees centigrade. It freezes back to becoming more of a solid. And what you tend to find yourself thinking is that with things like a mild steel, which is this, you think of that as a relatively soft material, believe it or not, when you've been working with it, especially on lathes and on milling machines and stuff, or with a hand file. If you start filing a piece of mild steel, you think, oh my God, this is like cheese. Whereas a piece of tool steel is more like a glassy hardness. But you can't help thinking about it as if it is a frozen piece of material. That's the way I kind of look at steel these days. Coil spring is a very good material for making knives out of, for example, because you want a knife to be hard, and then you can, what's called tempering it back, so you heat it up so that you can manipulate it, and then as people know that you do this quench thing, so you get it red hot, stick it in a bucket of oil or a bucket of water, depending on the type of steel, and that freezes that moment when the iron when the steel was at a certain part of its material property. You warm it up again, and you just warm it up until it just relaxes ever so slightly, and that's called tempering. And you get these beautiful colours as well when you're tempering. So the whole process is interesting from an aesthetic point of view as well as the material science part, because they will turn into colours that you just don't get on TV. Because if you can find a use for something that was up until that point useless or being thrown away, you've saved a huge amount of Earth's resources in a way that standard recycling doesn't.